Hello, namaste. My name is Nidhi Nagori and welcome back to my channel. Now, if you watched the previous video, we're doing a 5-video series of US CPA exams where I'm giving you a detailed breakdown of what each exam entails. This is the video 2 where we're talking about FAR. We've already discussed the exam structure, what it is like to write these 4 exams, and all those details in the previous video. If you haven't watched that video, I'm going to link it in the description box below. Make sure you go ahead and watch it because that's going to give you all the background knowledge that you need and the basic structure that you will need to understand the next 4 videos. Now, this video, we're focusing on FAR, which is Financial Accounting and Reporting. My score in FAR was 90. How did I get to the 90? We'll get to all the details. Before that, do not forget to like this video and share it with a friend. And of course, subscribe to the channel. And for all the BTS, follow me on Instagram. That link is right there. And now let's get straight into the video and understand how to score a good score in FAR. I'm going to start off this video by saying that when I started studying for my CPA, a lot of my friends had advised me to write FAR the first because it is the most difficult exam. I do have a strong background in accounting because I've done my chartered accountancy from India. So that sort of made this exam a little easier for me. But if you do not have that background, or even if you have that background, I highly recommend doing FAR first. Most people say that it is the toughest exam, so it's better to write it first and get away with it. 2 things that I used to do while preparing for my CPA, and I think those are very useful, is one is having running notes, which is just writing notes in a language that you understand. It could be basically anything. I used a lot of English, which is Hindi plus English, while I was studying, and for each subject I used to have a lot of running notes. For FAR, I think my running notes were about 20 pages for the whole syllabus. These running notes come in handy a day before the exam when you're trying to just get through the concepts, skim through it pretty much easily. Also, my FAR preparation lasted for about 1 month. So that's the amount of time that I took, 30 odd days to prepare for my FAR exam. So depending on what your comfort level is with the subject, schedule your exam accordingly. The second thing that I did a lot was I completed 100% of my study material. So whatever study material you're using, make sure you're doing it 100%. Even if you're not scoring very well on the MCQs, make sure you come back to it once you're done with completing it once. And that is also going to help you revise your subject. So make sure you keep the running notes and make sure you come and do 100% of the MCQs and the task-based simulation. So let's get started in a more in-depth analysis of what a FAR exam entails. The FAR exam is probably tested in 4 areas, and I'm going to now detail the percentage allocation of these areas as well. The first one is conceptual framework, financial reporting, and understanding the basic concepts. This is about 25 to 35% of the exam. The second one is financial statement accounts, which is about 30 to 40% of the exam. The third one is select transactions, which is about 20 to 30% of the exam. And the last is the local and state governments, which is about 5 to 15% of the exam. The first section, which is a conceptual framework, standard setting, and financial reporting, that seemed to be pretty easy for me because my background in chartered accountancy definitely helped. It wasn't a lot of new learning because it generally tested balance sheet, income statement, statement of equity, my understanding of those. What was new was understanding how these standards are set. So I wasn't very aware of FASB, AICPA, PCAOB. So all of that was definitely new. And it took a little bit of time in understanding those. But apart from that, when it came to the other pieces, which is balance sheet, income statement, cash flow statements, statement of equity, those were in par with what I had studied previously. Another thing that was different in this topic was the statement of comprehensive income. I hadn't been exposed to that. So in the first whole topic, which was about 25 to 35% of the exam, I had to study about all these new accounting boards and organizations that form a part of the US GAAP, the FASB, the SEC, the PCAOB, how the whole standard setting happens, and the other comprehensive income. Like I said, the other pieces of financial statements were something that I had already been exposed to and I had decent knowledge of. The smaller pieces of this area, which is notes to financial statement, going concerns, discontinued operations, were again areas that I had been exposed to previously. So coming from my own old background, 2 major learnings here were the standard setting process and the statement of comprehensive income. Overall, this section did not consume a lot of time because there wasn't a lot of new concepts that I had to learn. Again, the MCQs and TBS, the task-based simulation, did take some time, but there was no real big difference in the concepts. So if you have a previous background in accounting, this section would definitely seem easier to you. The second area, which is the financial statement accounts, which is about 30 to 40% of the exam and is a major chunk. This is where they covered all the different areas that are on the financial statements, which is all the accounts that you see on your balance sheet, whether it's trade receivables, whether it's cash and cash equivalents, PP&E, accounts receivable, accounts payable, equity, etc. So this was a very extensive section. If you have a background in accounting, a lot of these concepts will not be very new to you. But having said that, there are some small nitty-gritties in these pieces that are still new, and there's a lot of unlearning and relearning that has to happen for you to crack this exam and this concept perfectly. In terms of my own understanding, the areas like cash, inventory, trade receivables, and PP&E fell pretty straightforward. Yes, PP&E had some pieces, like for example in depreciation, that I felt were a little new to me, and concepts that I wasn't very well versed with. But apart from that, these areas seem to fall in line with what I'd studied before. What was a little different was investments, and that was an area that I needed a little bit of help on and a little bit of studying on. So depending on your own experience, if you're experienced in this area, then yes, but I wasn't, because I did not know the basic concepts in details, and so this area took a little bit of time for me. Coming to the other areas of this section, like notes payables, liabilities, accrued payables, etc. Again, they fell pretty much in line with what I had studied before, so there weren't a lot of new concepts to be learned. What I do want to point out here is that revenue recognition is a major piece of testing. Revenue recognition standards have recently changed in the United States a couple of years ago. And because of the big change that has come about, this is a favorite area of testing. So make sure you get your concepts clear around revenue recognition. It was a little easier for me because I was already doing this at work. And so I had a basic background of it. But if you're not doing the new revenue recognition standard at work, which is followed in US GAAP, then yes, this may need a little bit of time. And you would want to focus your attention on areas that have recently changed, and an area like revenue recognition, especially, that has seen a major change in the recent past. Coming to the next small piece of this area, which is compensation and benefits. This again was also very new because this is a completely different set of law than what I had previously studied in India. And so this also took me a little bit of time in terms of understanding the 401k or how 403bs work for not-for-profits, how do you account for them. ESOPs, the concept generally does not change. But again, if you haven't been exposed to them in details previously, this could be a section that needs a little more time. The next two areas that I'm going to talk about is business combinations and contingencies. Again, not very different from what we've studied. And the next one would be derivatives. Now, this to me was very new. Even though I had some exposure to it back in the days, I wasn't very well versed with the concepts because this is not something that I've worked with and not something that I have practical knowledge of. So this area also needed a little bit of time investment from me. Coming to the section number 3, which is select transactions. This is the area that I had to put in a lot of effort for, because this was not something that I was either working in regularly or I did not have a lot of exposure to them when I was studying and while I was professionally gearing up for my CA or my BCom. So this has concepts like leases, non-reciprocal transfers, research and development cost, etc. So it depends on your comfort level. As long as you are comfortable with these topics, you would be probably fine. I wasn't, so this was an area that needed a little bit of time from my end, but totally depends on how comfortable you are. Also, this area has something called fair value measurement and differences between US GAAP and IFRS. Again, I had to put in a lot of time here as well. So section 3, I would say, is where I put in a lot of time in terms of just learning the concepts. The other sections, I was mostly skimming through and doing MCQs and simulations. But section 3 and 4, I would say, were very new to me and needed a lot of time from my end. The last section is state and local governments. Just by the name of it, I'm sure you've guessed that this one needs a lot of time, because this is completely new and this is not something that I have studied before, given that I come from a completely different country. This is not something that I was exposed to, and so yes, it needed a little bit of time. Personally, to me, what was the most difficult part of this exam? Well, studying for a few pieces took a lot more time. So for example, studying for the local and state government, studying for leases, studying for pension, studying for not-for-profit, and studying for the derivatives. That took a little bit of time because I wasn't very well versed with the concepts. Apart from that, everything else sort of felt pretty much aligned with what either I had studied or what I was working in. And revenue recognition felt okay only because I had practical exposure to it. So we're approaching the end of this video. I just want to remind you one thing, that you've seen that everything that I've spoken about in this video correlates to what my experience or what my education has been like. All of the preparation depends on what your experience has been like. Irrespective of how strong you feel about concepts, I highly recommend doing the MCQs and task-based simulations to the 100% mark as much as you can. Please do them. Where your concepts are not strong, study the lectures. The lectures are very good. Whatever study material you use, I'm sure the lectures are going to be amazing. Follow them. And most importantly, before writing any exam, try to figure out what are the areas that you're not well versed with. If you have basic accounting background, I'm sure you're going to be very well versed with balance sheet, income statement, cash flows, statement of equity, the different accounts that are used like inventory, cash, payables, liabilities, etc. Help you identify areas that you need more support with. So for just like me, I needed a lot of support on not-for-profit accounting or state and local government, or the areas that I had not studied previously or had not worked into. Similarly, identify those areas so that you know before starting off what is it that you need to focus on. In terms of hours, I probably used to put in 3 to 4 on a weekday and the full weekends. So yes, it is a big toll on your social life. But again, it depends on how comfortable you feel with the topic. If you feel that you're very comfortable with the topic, skip the lecture. I did not do it. I did 100% of the lectures only because I wanted to make sure I'm not missing out on any nitty-gritties here and there. But if you feel that you do not need to know the concepts or you do not need a brush up on the concepts, feel free to skip the classes and the lectures and move to the MCQs and task-based simulations. I hope this video helped you guys, and if it did, please don't forget to give it a big thumbs up down below. Let me know in the comments what are your questions related to FAR. I'm definitely gonna try and answer them, and if I do not get to the comments, make sure you send me a DM on Instagram. I'll see you in the next video where we discuss audit, where I scored a 92. So I'm very excited to share that journey with you as well, and we'll discuss the details of that subject as well. Until then, take care, happy studying, and I'll see you soon. Bye.